A common occurrence in iOS development is to work with optional strings. Let's say you get some data from somewhere from the backend, and you pass a bunch of or you have keys and values in a string params that you pass around, and sometimes they could be optional, meaning they could be nil, or sometimes there is a string there behind it. But what quite often happens, you really don't care for the optionality itself, and you actually can get away with just having an empty string instead to get rid of this uncertainty of that nilability, optionality of it. So what quite often you would do is if let unwrap, right? And let's say you have something like this, like a method like this. So here, one of the params, param1, is a non-optional string, right? So it will always be guaranteed to have it. And then the param2 is an actual optional string. So you might have a nil there, right? But let's say for some reason you're fine with this optionality, and you can, down the road in your sort of algorithm or whatever you're implementing here, you can actually get away with an empty string instead. You just want to get rid of the optionality and just have a string and empty string instead, and go ahead and use it. What you could be doing is the typical if let unwrap, right? So you could use this. So yeah, what you could be doing here is if the string can be unwrapped and it's not optional, then you assign to your actual param2 the final value, you assign the value of that string, or you assign an empty string to that actual param, and then down the road later you use that actual param2, right? To do whatever you need to do with it. But this way you get rid of the optionality. But this if let unwrap kind of combo, it might breed and spread across your code base and kind of looks gnarly, and you have to have an extra variable instead for it, right, to do this. So a more elegant, if you will, way of going about it that's quite handy is to actually have an extension on string class and add an or empty method that returns if the string is optional and is nil. It will return an empty string instead, right? So that way you kind of have this continuity and can actually chain things down the road. Because, for example, if you were manipulating this string later, right, let's assume for some reason you wanted to, I don't know, append something to it, right? Down the road, like regardless of whether it actually had a value or if it was an empty string, you just want to kind of continue to do that, right? You would have to resort for this kind of ifelsing, which again is too unwieldy. So what you can do instead is that extension. So here we are declaring, well, not a method, I guess technically it's a computed property on the optional where wrapped value is a string, right? And the way we declare it is we have this extension on the optional type, and then we use, I forgot what this conditional is actually called properly in Swift, but essentially it says that where underlining wrapped type is of the type of string, then we implement that computed property and we return a string, not an optional string, right? And so you could call this or empty method on a string question mark, right? An optional string type object. And then we switch case, and there's only two cases, right? There is one where there is some value in it, right? So we do it with case.sum let value and then return that value. So it was unwrapped in this case implicitly. And then there is another case for .none, and we return an empty string. So what you can be doing here, instead of all of this actual param dance, what you could be doing, you can get rid of this, and then simply say param2, that optional in your method, that optional param object, you could call it, and then say or empty, and then do whatever else you need to do, like append some string. So essentially, yeah, this is a way of kind of getting rid of optionality for and defaulting essentially nil strings, nil optional strings to an empty string. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to sort of migrate the whole podcast towards video form, screencast format, and put it all up on YouTube, because I realized it's not gonna... Audio format is great, and I'll keep doing the podcast as much as I can, but a lot of the coding concepts are too difficult to explain over the air or over the audio. So instead, I'll rather show, don't tell, right? And show the code and show stuff like this, as simple as this and short as this, or something longer and more complex via video and via screen sharing and walking you through it. So please subscribe. That will greatly help me to kind of get the whole YouTube game and channel on the next level. And please like it as well, so that YouTube algorithms distribute the video better. And I'll see you next time.